dryads to glaives, especially because dryads are not only kind of expensive wood-wise, and if you've lost a couple of wood wisps early on, you'll realize how bad it is. Yeah, you should really try and ease up on the dryads as much as possible. But yeah. Anyways, basically this game is over, and the only thing that's really stopping Longwalk from winning is the fact that Czech's kind of being stubborn. But the basic mechanics of the way that Longwalk approached this is that he went, okay, I'm short on wood wisps, so I'm going to get a couple more archers than I usually should. This is a really smart move, by the way. Picks up the mud golem, gets the slow. Mud golems are pretty cheap, so that's not a bad idea in this case, especially because he has a pretty huge advantage. Anyways, so what he did was, he's like, okay, well, worst kind of happened. I lost a whole bunch of wisps. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to build a couple extra archers instead of a whole bunch of dryads, which a whole bunch of dryads actually still does work. It's not great if he has more glaives than most normal people would have, which is like they'd push you with about 3 glaives as opposed to about 2. So generally, if they have like 5 or 6 glaives, then you're kind of screwed when it comes down to the dryads. But if you have a couple archers instead, it's pretty good. Anyways, moving on. If you don't get the second Ancient of Lore up, you might as well get mercenaries, even if it means going like wrapping around a shop or getting out of position or going closer to his base just to be able to hit the merc camp. It's a pretty good idea, just because troll berserkers are great. They're just like awesome archers, basically. I think they have the same range. Oh, never mind. Can't really tell. Upgraded archers. Anyways, and then when you hit tier 2, you get a second hero. If you don't have a second hero, your positioning is going to be crap, which is why the Beastmaster is good, because if you have the front Quill Beast, it makes it a lot easier just to be able to fight him, just because you'll be able to set up another meat shield that doesn't really cost too much, especially in terms of EXP or money. Sure, it does cost you in terms of EXP, but it doesn't cost you as much as losing, like, an archer. But yes, what you do is you get the second hero, and basically you try and keep the positioning game. And this is why I like the Keeper, because you can actually screw up a bit of their positioning. And then if they actually get a couple of archers in with their army, what you do is you actually use your heroes to focus down the archers, just because heroes rape archers really bad. You'll notice that's game over. It kind of ended earlier than that, but that's not the point. Anyways, get replay 2 paused at the 45-second mark. This second game is actually a little different, because what the elf is going to do is he's actually going to try an expo with the Priest of the Moon, and you'll see how it's countered. Of course, the way he does it initially isn't very, how am I going to put it, very efficient. I mean, it still works, and you're still going to have to do it, but scouting-wise, it could be really inefficient, especially if you guess wrong. So I'm still getting there. Let's see. You'll want it under OG's point of view. And you'll notice I haven't actually been as impressed with OG as most people have. So I kind of think of this as, him being a better player in this case. I mean, he is still really, really good, but that's not the point. Anyways, let's see. I actually don't lose to the Priest of the Moon mass hunts anymore. I've actually got it pretty figured out. Of course, my priestess usage kind of blows, but whatever. Anyways, yeah, let's get this replay unpaused ASAP. What else do I have to mention? Oh, it's a different spawn this time. He's actually closer to the shop as opposed to a merc camp, and it's also cross-map. That's pretty important. I'll explain why once we unpause. And let's unpause from the 45-second mark in 3, 2, 1, unpause. Alright, so the difference between the close spawn and the cross spawn is actually with the close spawn, it makes it a little more difficult to actually access, shops and merc camps without getting harassed to crap, and without possibly getting the creeps awakened on you and then attacking your hero and losing a whole bunch of moon juice because you have to heal your hero. And basically what the cross spawn allows you to do is it allows you to creep a little more defensively. the reason that this is because you can actually draw the creeps out, and when they come from, let's say, the tavern to, let's say, the goblin merchant, you can actually grab the creeps a little towards your base, and then it makes it a little difficult for them to actually get in there, especially because the troll trappers will ensnare them. And same thing goes with the merc camp. If you go to the one that's near his Ancient of War, you can actually bring them around to the bottom, closer to the goblin lab for reference, and then it makes it a little difficult for them to actually attack you without going through the creeps first. So in that way, it makes it a little more easy, because, close spawn, they can actually come from both sides, so it's hard to drag out the creeps without, still taking a risk. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is that cross spawn is actually beautiful if you're facing Priest of the Moonmass hunts, just because of how easy it is to access everything. So you'll notice he's actually got his Ancient of War a little further away from the creeps this time. That's because a lot of people will actually take the wisp and try and drag out the creeps and attack your early Ancient of War. And your early Ancient of War will actually take a lot more damage just because it's in the middle of being built, so it has different armor. I don't know exactly what it is. I'm told it's like light armor or something. I don't know. I don't actually believe them. I just think it just reduces the armor just because it's in build and, well, just because it's not finished being built. So once again, Priestess comes before the last creep is done. And you'll notice he actually played this really smart, is he's actually stalled the last hit on the Demon Hunter before he actually swiped down the Null Warden, so that the Priestess couldn't actually steal it without being a pain. That was kind of risky. He kind of got that by a split second. But anyways, you'll notice his Scout Wisp, if you have the Fog of War on or off, whatever, that went into his base. You'll notice that he scouted one Ancient of War. He didn't actually find a second one. And you'll notice right away he's sending his Demon Hunter to check for a second Ancient of War / expansion, which he's actually checking with his Demon Hunter. And if, as luck would have it, he actually finds an early building expo. So in this case, I actually send a couple Scout Wisps out instead, just because you never know what's going to happen. And especially because if you send your Demon Hunter that far out, you're basically losing a little bit of an advantage. I mean, look at the Priestess of the Moon, just like taking its toll on the Moonwells. Basically, one of them's going to get cancelled. But still, that's just one thing to keep in mind. You'll notice he is sending another Scout Wisp back to the top. And the reason that this is important is because you can, if you don't stop the Fast Expo, a lot of hunts can beat a few bears. So, yeah, it kind of ends up being bad if you don't, scout the Expo. So what else was I going to say? One thing that OG hasn't done is he hasn't actually scouted his base again, which he will do in a bit. And you'll notice that he's harassing with the huntress, Lil DC is, and this is a little risky because you end up wasting a lot of moon juice. I end up just using my Priest of the Moon and waste a whole bunch of his time that way. I don't like risking huntress, especially because archers do actually a fair bit of damage, especially the huntress. So yeah, it's a preference thing, but I just stick with what I do best. So yeah, anyways, you'll notice he's kind of turtling in his base. I mean, he's got a Staff of Teleportation. That was pretty smart, especially if he has to stop an expo, which is what his Scout Wisp are there for. He can actually staff in for that as well if he needs to. You'll notice he's only got 4 archers, though. At this point, he's actually making an assumption. The fact that, Lil DC tried to expo and he didn't scout a second Ancient of War, he's kind of assuming that he's tagging instead to Dryads, and a lot of people will mix in a Dark Ranger as a second hero. Now, the one thing that you do get if they do tech and you stop one of their fast expos from going up is that you actually gain a huge tech advantage, which means you're going to get a couple Dryads out early. Well, earlier, which means you're going to get a couple more Huntress kills. And you'll notice his Ancient of War is actually going over to the Goblin Merchant. This is just kind of thinking ahead and being like, well, I might as well get some creeping done anyways, eventually. So, yeah, that's what happened there. If you turn Fog of War off for a second, as a Priestess player, if you're listening to this, you will notice he's pre-building the Tree of Life at the bottom near the green camp, which is really, really smart. And I thought I should mention that for you. Right now, he's kind of not getting his second hero while the Huntress are, right at the bottom because you don't want to get your hero surrounded. But he does get the Naga, and the reason you get the Naga is actually because you can pick off a few Huntress that way, and especially if they're teching The only thing that you don't really gain an advantage of is in a Dryad fight, or Dryad versus Dryad fight.